Monsieur Seguin's Goat, simply read by Lynn Kempton. To Monsieur Pierre Gringoire, lyrical poet in Paris. You will never get on, my poor Gringoire. What? They are offering you a position as a journalist in a good newspaper in Paris, and you have the arrogance to refuse it? But look at yourself, miserable boy. Look at this doublet full of holes, these worn-out stockings, this thin face which shouts of hunger. But this is where your passion for beautiful poetry has led you? This is what 10 years of service to the god Apollo has been worth for you? Are you not thoroughly ashamed of yourself? Become a journalist then, you imbecile. Become a journalist. You will earn beautiful pink écus, and you will dine at Brabant, and you will be able to present yourself at premieres with a new feather in your cap. You don't want to. You prefer to stay as free as a bird until the end of your days. Well, listen a little to the story of Monsieur Seguin's goat. You will see what one gains by wanting to live free. Monsieur Seguin had never had any joy with his goats. He lost them all in the same way. One fine morning they would break through their rope, would go off into the mountains, and up there the wolf would eat them. Neither caresses from their master nor fear of the wolf. Nothing held them back. They were, it seemed, independent goats, wanting at any price open space and freedom. Good Monsieur Seguin, who understood nothing of the character of his goats, was worried. He would say, "It's finished. My goats are bored in my home. I won't keep a single one of them." However, he did not get discouraged, and after losing 6 goats in the same manner, he bought a 7th. Only this time he took the trouble to select a very young one, so that she might more easily get used to living at his home. Ah, Gringoire, how pretty she was, Monsieur Seguin's little goat. How pretty she was with her soft eyes, her little sub-officer beard, her black shining hoofs, her striped horns, and her long white fur, which made a great coat for her. She was almost as charming as Esmeralda's kid. You remember Gringoire? And docile, affectionate, allowing herself to be milked without moving, without putting her foot in the bowl. A darling little goat. Monsieur Seguin had behind his house an enclosed area surrounded by hawthorns. That's where he put the new lodger. He attached her to a stake in the meadow's best spot, taking care to leave her with lots of rope, and from time to time he came to see that she was well. The goat was so happy and grazed the grass with such a good heart that Monsieur Seguin was delighted. Finally, thought the poor man, there's one who won't be bored at my home. Monsieur Seguin was mistaken. His goat became bored. One day she said to herself, looking at the mountain, "How good it must be up there! What a pleasure to gambol in the heather without this cursed tether, which rubs against my neck. It's okay for a donkey or a cow to graze in a meadow. Goats, they need open spaces." From that moment the grass in the enclosure seemed bland. Dissatisfaction came down upon her. She grew thin. Her milk was lacking. It was sad to see her all day pulling on her tether, her head turning to the side of the mountain, her nostrils wide open, making the sound meh sadly. Monsieur Seguin noticed that something was the matter with his goat, but he did not know what. He did not know that it was. One morning, as he was finishing milking her, the goat turned to him and said in his local dialect, "Listen, Monsieur Seguin, I am withering away in your home. Let me go into the mountains." "Ah, my God, she too?" cried Monsieur Seguin, stupefied. And with that he dropped her bowl, and sitting down on the grass beside the goat. "What, Blanquette, you want to leave me?" Blanquette replied, "Yes, Monsieur Seguin." Is there not enough grass here? Oh no, Monsieur Seguin. Perhaps you are on too short a leash. Do you want me to lengthen the rope? It's not worth the trouble, Monsieur Seguin. Well, what do you need? What do you want? I want to go to the mountain. But, unfortunate animal, you do not know that there is a wolf in the mountains. What will you do when he comes? I will attack him with my horns, Monsieur Seguin. The wolf laughs at your horns. He has eaten goats with much bigger horns than yours. You know very well poor old Renaud, who was here last year, a lady goat, strong and as vicious as a ram. She fought all night with the wolf. Then in the morning the wolf ate her. Poor Renaud! It matters not, Monsieur Seguin. Let me go to the mountains. Merciful God! But what are they doing to my goats? Another one whom the wolf is going to eat. Well, no, I will save you, in spite of yourself, you headstrong girl, and from fear that you are going to break through your rope, I am going to shut you up in the stable, and you will remain there forever. With that, Monsieur Seguin took the goat into a pitch-black stable and closed its door with a double lock. Unfortunately, he had forgotten the window, and hardly had he turned his back when the little goat made off. You're laughing, Gringoire? Goodness me, I do believe you are on the goat's side against good Monsieur Seguin. We will see whether you continue to laugh presently. When the white goat arrived in the mountains, joy was all around her. The old fir trees had never seen anything so pretty. They received her like a small queen. The chestnut trees lowered themselves to the ground to caress her back with the end of their branches. The entire mountain celebrated her. You think, Gringoire, that our little goat was happy? No more rope, no more stake, nothing to stop her gambolling, grazing at her well. That's where she had lots of grass. The grass came above her horns, my friend. And what grass! Tasty, slender, delicate, grass from thousands of plants. It was completely different from the turf in the enclosure. And the flowers, large blue bellflowers, purple foxgloves with long chalices, an entire forest of wild flowers, overflowing with intoxicating sap. The white goat, half drunk, prostrated herself therein with her legs in the air. She rolled along the banks pell-mell in the midst of the dead leaves and the chestnut trees. Then suddenly she leapt to her feet in one bound. There she was gone, crossing through the scrub and the bushes, now standing on a peak, now at the bottom of a ravine, high up, low down, everywhere. You would have said that there were 10 of Monsieur Seguin's goats in the mountains. It was because she was afraid of nothing, Blanquette. She crossed with one leap torrential rivers which muddied their waters on passing through with damp dust and foam. Then, streaming with water, she lay out on some flat rock and let the sun dry her. Once, moving forward to the edge of a plateau, the flower of a laburnum held between her teeth, she saw down far below in the plain, Monsieur Seguin's house, with its enclosure behind. It made her cry with laughter. How small it is, she said. How could I stand it there? Poor creature, seeing herself perched so high, she believed she was at least as big as the world itself. In short, it was a good day for Monsieur Seguin's goat. Towards the middle of the day, running right and left, she happened upon a herd of chamois munching away at a wild vine. Our little goat, fleet of foot, was a sensation with her white dress. They gave her the best place at their wild vine feast, and all these gentlemen were very chivalrous. It even seems, and this must remain between ourselves, Grégoire, that a young chamois with black fur had the good fortune to be fancied by Blanquette. The two lovers lost themselves in the woods for an hour or two, and if you wish to know what they said to each other, go and ask those talkative sources which run around invisible in the moss. Suddenly the wind grew fresh. The mountain became violet in colour. It was the evening. "Already?" said the little goat, and she halted, astonished. Below, the fields were drowned in mist. Monsieur Seguin's enclosure disappeared in the fog, and of the little house you could see no more than the roof with a little bit of smoke. She listened to the bells of a herd which was being taken back home, and she felt her soul fill with sadness. A falcon who was returning home brushed his wings against her as he passed by. She shuddered. Then there was a howling in the mountain. "Oh! Oh!" She thought about the wolf. The entire day the idiot had not given him a thought. At the same time a horn sounded far away in the valley. It was good Monsieur Seguin who was making a last effort. "Come back," sounded the horn. Blanquette wanted to go back, but remembering the stake, the rope, the hedge of the enclosure, she thought that now she could no longer bear such a life, and that it was better to stay. The horn sounded no more. The goat heard behind her a noise in the leaves. She turned around and saw in the shadow 2 short ears, erect, with 2 shining eyes. It was the wolf. Enormous, immobile, seated on his backside, he was there looking at the little white goat and licking his lips in anticipation. As he knew that he would eat her, he was in no hurry. But when she turned round, he laughed nastily. "Ha ha! Monsieur Seguin's little goat!" and he smacked his fat chops with his big red tongue. Blanquette felt lost. At one point, remembering the tale of old Reynaud, who fought all night only to be eaten in the morning, she told herself that it would perhaps be better to allow herself to be eaten straight away. Then, changing her mind, she stood on guard, her head down and her horns forward like the brave goat of Monsieur Seguin's that she was. Not that she had any hope of killing the wolf. Goats do not kill the wolf, but just to see if she could hold on as long as Reynaud. So the monster moved forward, and the little horns entered the dance. Ah, the brave little goat! How courageously she fought! More than 10 times, I am not lying, Gringoire, she forced the wolf to move back to catch his breath. During these minute-long truces, the greedy little goat gathered a blade of her beloved grass, then returned to the combat, her mouth full. This lasted all night. From time to time, Monsieur Seguin's goat looked at the stars twinkling in the clear sky, and she said, "Oh, if only I can hold on till dawn." One after the other, the stars grew dim. Blanquette butted twice as hard with her horns. The wolf bit twice as hard with his teeth. A pale glow appeared on the horizon. The song of a hoarse cock rose up from a farm building. "At last," said the poor beast, who waited only for daylight to die, and she lay down on the ground in her beautiful white fur splattered with blood. Then the wolf jumped on the little goat and ate her.